In this video, I sit down with Joe Tonsager of JPaks. I last chatted with Joe in the spring of 2015, and you'll learn that a lot has changed in his life since then, with a very serious operation last year. But just talking to him, it's like he didn't skip a beat. He is still as passionate as ever to create custom bags for both commuters and bikepackers alike. Joe recently moved into his biggest space yet, which is letting him stretch out a little bit, and he couldn't be happier. So if you have any comments or questions for Joe, make sure to leave it in the comment section below. Enjoy the interview.
Joe Tonsager and custom sewer for Jpaks. I mean, essentially growing up in the woods on a nice chunk of property in Minnesota. And then that, of course, leads into Boy Scouts, which for the long run ended up getting my Eagle Scout. So all the things outdoors ended up being in rock climbing, Boundary Waters every year, mountain biking and riding, of course. Growing up in Minnesota, I fell in love with biking, and that became a thing into my early teens. And then when it came to look for schooling, Colorado was an obvious choice just because of the location and everything to do. So that's where I came out here for school for industrial design. Industrial design got me into soft goods even more than what I had known from Boy Scouts of hand stitching patches and stuff on. Now we're doing like industrial machine work and stuff like that, understanding seam allowances, turning things inside out, that whole process of patterning. Flat patterning was a huge thing. So yeah, ultimately, degree in industrial design leads into a small career of scale model making at an architecture firm out here. All the while continuing to ride. Bike packing comes on the radar, Tour Divide comes on the radar for me like 2009, 2010. I have the machines, I know where to get the equipment, start making this stuff for myself, which led to the creation of Jpaks years later after that. But a lot of that passion of just trying to make something for myself, the knowledge and equipment that I knew I had, try to look at something and see how you can make it better or different was the industrial design twist. Industrial design has a lot to do with that. How do you interface, ergonomics? How does one use the tool, or how does the tool work with you when you use it? Because I didn't invent bikepacking or bikepacking bags, but what could be made different or better, more efficient, all those things. And so then, of course, riding, using, testing just led to organic growth, and we're here now in my new shop. 10 years as an LLC, officially formed. I think it was 2012 officially. Before that, it was side hobby, friends and family type thing for a while. So that initial setup was in a great space in the Lower Highlands, probably 6 miles from here. That was probably in the neighborhood of like 250, 300 square feet. I actually downsized drastically. We bought a house on the east side of Denver. It had a front room at the time that was, I think, just under 100 square feet. Like, laughable to this day how I even produced and was able to make things out of that space. That's a sliver of what we're in now. Bought myself some time to then finally hook up with Adam Williams from Slow High Bike Shop, bike company. He then rented me the space in the lower part of Slow High Bike out on East Colfax. 3 years in the basement, that was about 250 square feet, which felt like a dream at the time. And now we're in about 500 square feet on the slightly west side of Alameda and I-25. In this very cool collective co-op style building. Woolly Wax Candles is right next to me here. We've got Animal Handmade, does leather goods. Union Stitch does aprons and other cotton sewn goods. A gentleman named Joe has his electrical outfit, his little headquarters over here. And then Huckleberry Roasters owns this entire other side of the building that's going to be their coffee roasting, distribution, packaging headquarters now. And so they were very keen and very fond of having a collective build space that we can use the other part of the building that they don't need.
I just want to take a brief pause and let everybody know that this video is supported in part by Surly Bikes. Surly makes serious steel bikes for people who want a versatile and durable rig that can be dressed up or down for commuting, bikepacking, ATVing, gravel grinding, or whatever you call fun on two wheels. With 15 original dirt-friendly platforms, they offer something that fits just about anyone for any style of riding. So for more details on Surly, definitely hit this card right here, and I also have a link in the description below.
So when I was 2 years old, they diagnosed me with a bicuspid aortic valve, which means my aorta valve, which the main blood leaves from your heart, looked like an eyelid instead of a peace sign. So it had two flaps instead of three. Most common, I think, heart defect in males in general. I mean, I'm definitely not the only person that has this. Monitored it, checked it out. No one else in my family has this condition, and just was told, just go about your life, live healthy, of course, healthy habits, healthy eating, exercise helps. Had some things happen in 2019 that I guess it would have been into 2020. Major fatigue, major energy, just falling off a proverbial cliff on these rides that I'd done year after year. Friends looking at me sideways, when I'm riding in the back of the pack type of thing, and I'm no racer in those instances, but just not having any energy and had these wild nausea bouts. I go in to get checked up. They heard the murmur was more pronounced in my heart since we're all aware of it. I went to go get that looked at, and the cardiologist elected to call my primary care physician instead of texting, messaging, whatever. And so he called me and was like, they don't usually call. Like, they have 4 other ways of getting a hold of me. He's like, this isn't good. So essentially what had happened is those 2 flaps opening and closing for 38 years had gotten calcified. So they weren't opening all the way and they weren't closing all the way. 50% of every pump was leaking backwards. So there's a 50% backflow. So the heart was trying to make up for that by pushing 150% forward, which then they call it the root, but the tube that comes off the aorta was enlarging, it was stretching. And so the worst case scenario is what they call a dissection, which is a blowout. It's like an inner tube would just, and in 30 seconds, it's over. So we caught it just in time. I found an awesome team. I interviewed different surgeons, cardiologists. I found the right team of people in Colorado that respect the fact that this is our active lifestyle, and that I was still young and wanted to get back to what I wanted to do. And I researched valve types, tissue versus mechanical, where to have the surgery, all of that stuff. And then I finally chose the date, which was March 25th of 2021. So we had about 3 months, and we're in the peak of year 2 of COVID. I going into it electively versus, say, having a heart attack or, it failing at a restaurant and you wake up in the hospital. So I had some lead time with that, get my head around it. But I elected to go in and knock that out, literally and figuratively. So I spent 5 days in the hospital and full sternotomy, wide open it's weird to me still, but since I was young and healthy, they wanted to open me up and get everything out. If you're older and it's definitely a risky operation, they would go in through a vein or an artery, and do a different procedure. So they elected to go in, get rid of the root that was expanded and bad tissue. The valve had a bad genetic code from the start. Got all that out, put a mechanical valve in, made by a company down in Austin, Texas, that has a Dacron sleeve. And now I have a mechanical chunk of my heart that operates, it's operated for the last year flawlessly. Not being able to ride my bike it was a good 3 months. I rode it right around my birthday, which was May 6th. So in March to May. That was tough. It was a roller coaster, lots of walking. Every activity I did was just remapping the heart. I also did the full cardiac rehab program, which was 36 sessions, 3 times a week. And they hook you up to a wire lead, monitor you, so it made it good. So yeah, it was tough. It was really weird. But then, of course, getting back on the bike was amazing. Like, I didn't cry, surprisingly. I thought I'd cry and get all crazy with it, but it just felt good again. The business side of things, that was probably scarier than not being able to ride the bike for a bit, just because I didn't know how that was going to be treated, and there's lots of people doing good stuff out there. Luckily, it survived. It thrived. I mean, it didn't thrive in those 3 months, but I came back to, and during that time, I had plenty of emails from people that said, I understand what's going on, but I still want what you do or what you make, or I've somehow carved out this niche in this niche market for custom stuff, and especially being in Colorado, that helped push it through. I really did. And on top of that, like, amazing, incredible, it gives me goosebumps even just saying it. It's support through friends and family and people that aren't even customers of mine that decided to buy the heart patch to help support that whole operation. Was pretty wild. I mean, humbling doesn't even describe the feeling of seeing those orders come in or seeing them on a bag of another brand, that's just the person wanted to support something, a situation. That was huge. So I came back to people waiting for stuff to be made. I've always been a big proponent of, this is a passion first, profit second type of thing. And all businesses have to make a profit, of course, but the idea of staying true, not trying to cover all of the the different products out there, but trying to stay into a small sliver of stuff. And then trying to push things forward a little bit, trying to change things up, doing the fully bolt-on stuff and working with, years ago Mosaic and then Corvid Cycles and pushing that envelope. And it's definitely catching on with other big brands too, which is cool to see. But yeah, I'm not trying to take over the world, just trying to, have take my passion and see other people out there with it. And yeah, to run into people that have stuff or know me or see them as I'm driving in and see them on somebody's commuter. I mean, still coolest thing ever. Go out with a group of friends and they have bikes or bags from you, and you're like the collective hours on each of those, but it allows them to all enjoy this activity. So I'd say mostly proud of just being able to stay alive in this thriving industry and not going into the production side, not trying to do the small, medium, large, ABC, but trying to stay truly into that custom vein of things. It is just me here, but I am proud to say it's been about a little over a year now. There's my buddy Tony. He lives up in Thornton. He's been sewing for years, and he's actually helped me more on the production side of things if we're going to. So Tony will help me out with the top tube, the snack packs, which has been fantastic. So the 4 basic colors, he's able to take the patterns that I get cut for him, assemble those, bring those back. And it's really cool. I'm proud to say that he helps me out because he's a genuinely good guy. He knows and likes quality. He wants to keep that part of it, and which is exactly what I need to keep, the quality. So I still look over everything, but I know I can hand it off to him and trust him. So it's brought it down a little bit. Like, it helps with the web orders. It helps, things go out, like all those orders over there that are waiting to go out. But then it lets me focus on the frame bags. I never want to get fully away from the sewing machine. So yeah, still me in the shop doing all that custom stuff, but I do finally have some help. The first thing that comes to mind are tandems. The tandems come to mind because they are so many pieces on this vast puzzle. The Colemans have a really cool Bingham tandem tie bike, and then the Plescos, like doing their tandem bike that also they wanted me to do a couple hearts so that their boys could ride along with them, which was obviously touches my heart, and it was super cool to do. So those take the top. Otherwise, it was like back in the day, Zen, back in like 2015 roughly, the last time we spoke, was the first bolt-in for me. I had seen Scott Felter at Porcelain Rocket had done it, and right away I'd seen those back at NABS, and I was like, man, you have to have a custom frame done. You have to have a builder willing to do that. And so those were wild because I had no idea how they were going to support themselves and the structure and the shape. And then Mosaic wanted to take it further. Corvid's taken it, same thing, pushing the envelope with it. If all things work out in the world in general, at large, the plan, we had created a route back in 2020 through Portugal and Spain. So if it all works out, the plan is to take the month of September, which scares me to no end to close again for a period of time. And I've done it twice in the past, to Europe both times. But also with the open heart surgery, with how short life is, and if the window of opportunity with the world and COVID and everything opens up and we can do it, the plan is to fly into Morocco, a couple days into Marrakesh, hang out there, maybe not even physically on bikes as much of like checking out the city, ferry across, and then north through Portugal, and then come across the top of Spain. And I've got a buddy that lives in Barcelona, so if it all works out, we've always shipped our bike bags ahead on both trips, so it's point to point. So if all things work out, we can drop and ship our bags to him and just meet them in Barcelona. So yeah, the month of September, celebrate my wife's 40th birthday over in Spain. I'm in one of those weird positions where back in 2020, it felt weird to do so good. Luckily, it was right before the operation shutting down. But yeah, that phrase I love to say, a rising tide raises all ships. And in that bike industry and people wanting to then just ride from home to go do adventures or wanting to camp out, it was wild. Yeah, 2020, it was redlined for all that stuff and people constantly coming in. It rode that same tidal wave that the bike shops rode, and I feel like it's still, now I feel like it's just as high because the events are coming back. So now people can look forward to Tour Divide, they can look forward to these organized events and things. And so it's like the fury is on again. Instead of solo trips, now you can get back into more group things. So yeah, it was wild, and it still continues to be. It is a mix. Yeah, I'd say it's a good 50-50 of people that come in saying, I know what I want from previous bags or experience or with racing, very minimalist stuff. And then people that have no idea, right? People it's their first time or first custom. A lot of people, and I can relate to, I finally have the bike that I want to put a frame bag in, it's not going to disappear and be sold next year. So it's that's the balance with this that's kind of tricky, and hence like having a little lounge area, because a lot of times it becomes that 2-hour meeting with somebody if they're new. If we talk about bags and pads and tents and stoves and filters, you know what I mean? Like it goes beyond just the bike bags. I want to say nerve-wracking, but you want everything to be good for them, right? You don't want your gear or obviously the frame or anything to fail and ruin the trip. But the racing, of course, it's a race, so you're focused on time and the clock. And so like Hefe Brenham is the god, the goat. So for him to be able to take things out and like put some miles on it and test it, like it gives a great stamp of approval from myself. And so it's really cool to have that, and also to sit down and talk about all the other gear associated. Appointments are appreciated. Come by. It's a great, like the idea is to hang out in the space, to talk adventure and stuff like that. And that way it just allows me to plan my day around those talks and hangouts and stuff like that. But eventually we'll have coffee on tap. Got filtered water, which is great because of the coffee shop. Beverages in the fridge. Yeah, thanks for having me, and thanks for coming down to check it out. Talk bikes and bike bags. Yeah, it's very cool.